Okay, Volume 6, Bible Story. We are at Part 1, Story 8, The King Goes Mad. Oh, I've seen pictures of, and they give a reason why in some people, but that's for you if you want to get older and want to research it. It will tell you what happened. But let me read the story. Part 1, Story 8, The King Goes Mad. Years rolled by. Nebuchadnezzar kept on building up Babylon and extending his empire. He became stronger and stronger, richer and still more rich. By now he had become quite sure that Daniel had been wrong for saying that his kingdom would pass away and that another would rise and take its place. It might have been possible at the beginning of his reign, but not now. Look at his army. Note the height of the wall of his fortress capital. See all the people he had conquered. No enemy could take all this away from him now. Then it was that he had another dream. This one he did not forget, but he couldn't understand. Strangely enough, it was about a tree. At first the tree was small, but it grew and grew its branch until its branches reached far up into the sky. It bore more fruit, and many animals took shelter at it in its shade. Then he saw an angel come down from heaven, crying, "Hew down the tree, cut off his branches, and shake off his leaves, and scatter his fruit. Let the beasts get away from under it, and the fowls from his branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump in the earth, let it be wet with the dew of heaven." And that's condensed, so that's what it looks like to me. Okay, then, to Nebuchadnezzar's surprise, the heavenly messenger seemed to change the subject and saying, "Let his heart be changed from a man's, and let it be a beast's heart that given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. This matter is by the decree of the watchers and the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will." Greatly puzzled, the king called all his magicians, astrologers, and the Chaldeans of old, and asked them to tell him what the dream meant, if anything. What they told him, we do not know, but Nebuchadnezzar was not satisfied. He was sure that there was a message in the dream for him, and he was determined to find out what it was. Finally, he remembered Daniel, who had once recalled his dream of the strange metallic image. Daniel, of course. Why had I not thought of him before? Surely he can help. But even Daniel did not reply at once. He saw the meaning of the dream immediately, but was too upset to tell it. Noticing the troubled look on his friend's face, Nebuchadnezzar said, Belshazzar, calling Daniel by his Chaldean name, don't let the dream alarm you. Daniel replied that he wished the dream had been about something else. But that's where it stops. And then it has a tree on this page. Beautiful tree. And of course, this part reminds me of one of those manuscripts. Okay, let's get back. Daniel replied that he wished the dream had been about the king's enemies rather than about the king himself. Then he told Nebuchadnezzar what the dream meant. The tree is yourself, he said. Excuse me. You have grown and become strong, and your kingdom reaches to the ends of the earth. But by the decree of the Most High, you shall be driven from your palace and made to live among the beasts of the field. You will eat grass as they do, and your body will be wet with the dew. For 7 years this will continue until you admit that the Most High God rules in the kingdom of men and give it to whomever he will. This was a terrible thing to say to a king in those days, especially one with a temper like Nebuchadnezzar. But Daniel was never afraid of doing his duty. Then, seeing the king was deeply moved, he added with great tenderness, Wherefore, O king, accept my counsel. Break off your sins by righteousness, and your iniquities by showing mercy to the poor. The king has listened thoughtfully. Perhaps for a moment he thought he would do as Daniel had said. But as the days and weeks went by, he drifted back to his old ways, and he was still too proud to make God first in his life. At the end of 12 months, he walked in the palace of the kingdom of Babylon, saying to himself, Is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my misery? Then suddenly, while the word was still in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven saying, O Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from thee. Then a pause. The same hour was the thing filled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with dew of the heaven till his, and then it's a Vernon Nye up here at the top. There's the king looking upon his work, and he's saying, Didn't I do this? And he wasn't giving God the thanks. Okay? And it says, And his body was wet with the dew of heaven till his hairs were grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird's claws. In other words, he became mad and lived like an animal out in the fields. At the end of 7 years, he became sane again. Here is the amazing story in his own words. At the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up my eyes unto heaven, and my understanding returned unto me. And I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him that liveth forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. And all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing. So it says reputed. And he doeth according to his will in the army of heaven, and among the inhabitants of the earth. And none can stay his hand, or say unto him, What doest thou? At the same time my reason returned unto me, and it has the pause. I was established on my kingdom, and excelled excellent majesty was added to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven. All the works are true, and his ways judgment. And those that walk in pride he is able to abase. So Nebuchadnezzar, one of the most famous king of ancient times, found his way to God. He learned how foolish it is to be proud, to take glory to oneself. Humbly he admit that he, though king of Babylon, was nobody at all in the presence of the Lord of heaven. Gladly he agreed that God is in charge of the affairs of this earth, and that the heavens do rule. Maybe some of us need to learn the same lesson today. And then it has a picture of a stump and bound with a band down at the bottom. Okay, and guess what? It's break. So that was the end of part 1, story 8. And we're going to break, and I'll be back in a bit.